Welcome back to another episode of DAS with your boy, Sean Mack on SFO. And today we're going to be discussing one of the most loved and hated, one of the most misunderstood and understood people to ever grace the sidelines with his buttercutting presence. I'm talking about Big Bob Knight. Meant a lot to me growing up. Didn't know about all his shenanigans. I just was a young kid watching a man coach a team and getting the most out of his players. But in life, you can live. And if you live long enough, the things that you did growing up and as a young man in the future might not hold weight, which means that the game done passed you by and life done passed you by and your mentality and your thinking done passed you by. And that's exactly what happened to Big Bob Knight. So remember, if you like today's content, make sure you share, like, and subscribe to the video. So let's go. Robert Montgomery Knight, born October 25th, 1940, and left this world peacefully on November 1st, 2023. Knight quickly restored the Hoosiers basketball tradition with a revolutionary offense and an almost exclusively man-to-man defense. Most opponents struggle against his early Indiana teams, with the Hoosiers going 125-20 and winning 4 Big Ten Conference crowns in their first 5 seasons. That run concluded with Indiana's first national championship in 23 years. That 1975 and 76 team went 32-0, ending a 2-year span when the Hoosiers were 63-1 and captured back-to-back Big Ten championships with an 18-0 record. It remains the last time a major college men's team finished with a perfect record. That team was voted the greatest in college basketball history by the U.S. Basketball Writers Association in 2013. Knight won his second title in 1981, beating Dean Smith's North Carolina team after NCAA officials decided to play the game hours after President Ronald Reagan was shot and wounded earlier that day. His third title at Indiana came in 1987 when Keith Smart hit a baseline jumper in the closing seconds to beat Syracuse, one of the most famous shots in tournament history. But winning, and winning big, wasn't only part of Knight's legacy. He would do things his way he was content to. The other big-time coaches might follow the gentlemanly, buttoned-up approach, but not Knight. He dressed in plaid sport coats and red sweaters, routinely berating referees and openly challenging decisions by the NCAA and the Big Ten leaders. His list of transgressions ran long. Knight was convicted in absentia of assaulting a Puerto Rican police officer during the 1979 Pan American Games. He forfeited an exhibition game to the Soviet Union in 1987 when he pulled his team off the court after being called for a third technical foul. He told NBC's Connie Chung in a 1988 interview, quote, "I think that if aura is inevitable, relax and enjoy it," end quote. Knight was answering a question about how he handled stress and later tried to explain he was talking about something beyond one's control, not the act of aura. He was accused of headbutting one player and kicking his own son, Pat, during a timeout. At a 1980 news conference, he fired a blank from a starter pistol at a reporter. During the 1992 NCAA tournament, Knight playfully used a bullwhip on his star player, Calbert Cheaney, who was black. But his most famous outburst came on February 23rd of 1985, when Purdue's Steve Reed was about to attempt a free throw. A furious Knight picked up a red plastic chair and heaved it across the court, where it landed behind the basket. Fans started throwing pennies onto the court, one hitting the wife of Purdue's coach, Gene Keddy. Reed missed 3 of his next 6 ensuing free throws. Knight would go on to apologize the very next day, receiving a 1-game suspension, and was put on probation for 2 years by the Big Ten, intent on preventing such a thing again. Indiana officials chained together the chairs for both benches. Yeah, Bob Knight was a real man's man. You know, when I do these stories, remember, if you like today's content, make sure you share, like, and subscribe to the channel. But when I do content like this on someone like Bob Knight, especially someone that's lived a full life, you have so many things that you can talk about. You can talk about the Neil Reed incident, the choking incident. You can talk about how some players that played for him, not many, think that he's a racist. But last time I checked, Neil Reed was white. And to me, I always assumed that Bob Knight was just one of those tough old school people. I'm from down south. I had like tough uncles, tough grandfathers and stuff like that. But I always assumed that he just was one of those tough, hardcore type of men. You know what I mean? But when I do a Deaf After Sports, a DAS, I like to talk about what that person meant to me. Now, you might see this video and get a different feel for what Bob Knight meant. Make sure you get in the comment section and let me know if you have any words that are different from mine about how you felt about Bob Knight. But when I do these, I like to point out what that person meant for me and what I remember about him. Now, what I remember about him, roughly 1987, I'm like 7 years old. He had the national championship game, and my uncle, we didn't get a chance to actually watch that game because it was on late. Me and my brother, C. Anthony, we didn't get a chance to watch that game because it was late. But a few weeks later, we were with my dad by my uncle's house, and he would tape everything on VHS. And he was like, "Hey, did y'all see the game?" We were like, "No." So he let us hold the tape. We wound up never giving that tape back. Rest in peace to Uncle Leroy. Rest in peace. We still probably have that tape at home, actually, at my mother's house. But that national championship game, what I remember was it was the first time that they actually played One Shining Moment. That meant a lot to me. I also remember Bob Knight, like as a 7-year-old looking at him, they'll go to the cameras and they would look at him and he would be berating somebody, and berate somebody looked like he was being kind of mean, right? Like he just wasn't hearing nothing they had to say, and he was just telling them what they had to do. And then that person would go out and actually, in my mind as a 7-year-old, that, all right, he's hollering at them, he's telling them what they should be doing, and then that person coming out of the timeout would make a play. And to me, it just seemed like he would, I'm telling you what to do, now go do it. And that's how I equivalated it in my 7-year-old brain, that, wow, he can get people to do what they wanted to do. I knew a lot of stuff at 7 years old because of my father and my brother. They were, of course, my father was older than me, hello, but I had an older brother, and he would teach me a lot of things about games, so I wasn't your average 7-year-old. But what I remember about that was the people they had on there. Let's take a look at the starting lineup. Syracuse had Sherman Douglas, Greg Monroe, Derek Coleman, Howard Treese, and Ronnie Cycli. Indiana had Steve Alford, Keith Smart, Ricky Galloway, Darryl Thomas, and Dean Garrett. These people were like, they were kids, but to me they were grown up because I was 7 years old. And it was so good because the whole talk was that after the game, that Keith Smart hit the jump shot that won the game from the same spot that MJ did a few years previous to win it for North Carolina. I mean, literally almost the same play from the same spot. I think MJ was a little bit closer. To me, it seemed like Keith Smart was maybe like 18 feet out when he hit the shot, but I could remember it. And I also remember that a freshman called Derek Coleman, lefty, had missed some free throws late in that game that probably could have sealed the deal, because no one was coming down hitting threes like that. Steve Alford was actually having a great game. I think at that time he had the most 3-pointers in NCAA championship game. I think he had 5 or maybe 6 3-pointers that game, but they would have trapped him and he would have kicked it out, and whatever happened. But Derek Coleman missed some shots that game. He missed a huge free throw. They were like, the rookie Derek Coleman misses the free throw, blah blah blah. But it was just amazing to me to watch that. And on another note, me and C. Anthony, my brother, would watch this tape continuously. We didn't have Sports Center. We didn't have social media where you can get highlights like that. We just didn't have it. So we would watch that tape, I would say, for maybe a year or 2 years. We watched that tape at least 60 to 70 times, over and over and over. We knew what the cheerleaders were crying about. We knew every word that from the telecast. We knew everything about that damn about that game. And that's what I will take to my grave. The memories of Bob Knight was that 1987 championship game, and the first time One Shining Moment was played. So you had a long life, Mr. Knight. You had some ups, you had some downs, more good than bad. And I think history will see you as a good person. We all have our flaws. So I just wanted to say thanks for the memories, and rest in peace to Bob Knight. And if you like today's content, make sure you share, like, and subscribe to the video. This has been Deaf After Sports, Bob Knight.